Well, first of all, I just want to welcome all the PGA professionals on the call, both from the Mid-Atlantic section and the Metropolitan section. Both sections involved here. Tag Marshall has been a great partner of ours, and I assume the Met section as well. I know they do a good job up there. So they've got this great tool that they help our PGA professionals with in terms of managing their facilities and leveraging all the data that they provide. They actually came to our office and showed it to me, which was very cool. Just want to invite you all as PGA professionals to take a listen to our friends from Tag Marshall and see if this is a tool that could be useful at your facility. And I'm going to turn it over to Bodo right now. So let's take it away.
Thank you, John, and thanks for your multi-year partnership. Yourself, Jeff, and the team are and have been amazing to work with. So we're excited to keep growing into the Middle Atlantic, and also obviously work with the Med section, where we have lots of attendees from both today. So I know that you're not here for Tag Marshall. You're here to hear from Jamie Pearson from Baltusrol. Jamie, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you doing this morning?
Very good, thanks. I'm very excited. And our session today is called Lessons from Baltusrol, Leveraging Data and Optimization Tech to Enhance the Player Experience and Efficiency. And on the note of Baltusrol, let's jump straight in. I know your club doesn't need a lot of introduction, but give us the 1 minute intro, because I know you're suitably proud, and also tell us how you ended up in one of the driving seats at such a prestigious golf course.
So this is just finishing up my third year here at Baltusrol. I've worked at quite a few clubs before here. Before here, I was at Cherry Hills out in Denver, Colorado. Before that, I spent 2 years up at Aquanic in Manchester, Vermont. So I've been lucky enough to spend a lot of time at some really good places. So when the job, the head golf professional job, which is a new position, opened at Baltusrol, my fiance, she grew up in this area, so it was a no-brainer to apply. Lucky enough to have been selected for the position, and like I said, looking forward to heading into our fourth year. This last year we went upper course restoration. Gil Hans and his team came in, so we were kind of tasked with the hard responsibility this year of managing one golf course with a membership size that 36 holes. So it was an interesting year. So Tag Marshall helped a lot with that, and I'll kind of dive into that as we get going.
Nice. And we have seen this movie before, obviously having worked with Ryan when the other one of your courses was in renovation. And also congrats on your engagement and being selected for that position.
Thank you. A lot going on.
Nice one. Okay, fantastic. As everyone knows, Baltusrol is a multi-host of various championship events, and the next one in the lineup is just a few years out, right?
Yeah, 2029 PGA Championship on the lower course.
Exciting. And at that point, the renovations would have been well entrenched and well played by your very happy members. Let me jump in a quick introduction to Tag Marshall for those of you who don't know. I think it is almost time to flick our 75 million rounds track to 100 million. Certainly this time next year, we would have crashed through that number. And actually, we worked this out just recently. We're touching on 2 million golfers now annually, which is something that I feel very proud of. My focus on numbers, you can already hear. I am a data nerd, and I'm also German born and raised, in case you're wondering where my accent's from. We have tracked 10 billion data points, and we now work with 600 golf courses, and some of them, obviously the best of the best, both private and daily fee, and excited to work with, really forward-thinking management teams like Jamie, Ryan, and the team at Baltusrol, but also, customer number one for us was actually Erin Hills, and we're excited to continue long-standing partnership with Pinehurst, for instance, but also now more recently this year, the old course at St. Andrews, the home of golf. And obviously a golf course that's 470 years old, turning towards technology and looking into the future is something that we really feel is a bit of a milestone, and it's great to see that the industry is opening up to just working better with tech and using data to make better operational decisions. Let's jump back to Jamie. We're obviously serving golfers, right? And you have made this an art at Baltusrol, where you have very discerning members and also lots of guests that your members are proudly introducing to the course. What would you say are the key experience factors? What are the 3 things that we need to get right for the players if we had to prioritize 3 out of this list of course design, course conditioning, clubhouse amenities, pace and flow of play, playing partners, tee time availability, and value? What would you say are the non-negotiables?
I mean, I would always kind of start with playing partners. I think that's one of the things that leads to the experience. From our standpoint, we have a really good course design. Our grounds team does a really good job as far as the course conditionings. But even if you have the best playing partners, if pace is slow, that can really take away from the day. So I would say second would probably be the pace of play and flow. And then again, if pace is good, partners are good, but the course is in bad shape, I think that could probably take away from it. So I would guess course conditioning would be third if I were to guess.
So playing partners from player standpoint, course conditioning and pace need to be right. And then you're on the money. You have, like I said, you have made this an art form where everything else that you do, including your design, including your clubhouse, including your service levels, across everything that you do is obviously excellent. But from a golfer standpoint, what drives the bus is indeed. And the course conditioning at number 1, and this is a broad-based USGA research that has come out a while ago, where they asked some 30,000 golfers what floats to the top for you from an experience point of view. Playing partners, you're quite right. Number 2, and then very close to that, pace and flow of play. So it is very important to players. And I would wager a bet that in and around the New Jersey, New York Met area, pace and flow of play is probably more important than in other areas of the country, right? Time is of the essence, and you have very, very discerning golfers. They also have lots of options, right? So interestingly, the operators, that's the NGCOA's cohort of representative of a couple of thousand operators and golf course owners, they also count pace of play as a top 3 priority at 84%. So you're completely on track here, and no surprises, obviously. That there's one more item of research I'd like to just dig into a little bit, and that came from the Golf Innovation Symposium that, again, the USGA hosted, where a lot of novelties and new ways of thinking in golf were presented. And one of them was a broad-based research study that was done by the University of Wisconsin, where they have a golf management course, but they also have a customer experience sort of specialty. They're doing lots of research on behalf of industry and hotel groups, for instance. So the USGA was next in line, and the person leading the charge here is on stage here. That's Chris Schoonover from a prof at the university, but also the director of golf operations at Erin Hills, who I mentioned was our partner course number 1. So she was wearing both hats as a researcher, but also a golf operator. And what they found is that there's 1,000 touch points in a golf experience. How can there be 1,000 touch points? Well, booking you around, driving through the gate, all the way to checking in at the pro shop, hitting some balls at the range. All of these are little touch points, right? And they try to understand which one of them are the most important ones that delight players, and which ones of them are the most important ones when it comes to frustrating players, and which ones of them are neutral and float along the middle. Because where we're trying to get everything right, we have to prioritize some, right? And some of them are really detrimental, or they make everyone deliriously happy. And they found that both on the worst end of the spectrum are pace-related experience factors. The one is called corrective pace of play actions. And Jamie, if I can ask you, just from you have obviously having played a lot of golf, and you also have heard a lot of feedback from players, what do you think, or what would you think is a bad way of correcting pace of play when it comes to this is what golfers don't want?
I would say the way that you deliver. A lot of times when we go out and do pace of play, if a group is behind or slow, generally they know. So our professional staff that go out and talk with the members or the guests, just making sure that the delivery and how that message is delivered is very important. So again, we spend time and just talking with groups. Hey, your group's about 3 minutes behind. We can hop on Tag Marshall and see, maybe it's a specific hole that they fell behind. When we look into the data here, it's generally hole number 13. So I can see where that happened. Sometimes their pace is really good and it happens at a specific point. So you could say, hey, it looks like you guys had a tough hole number 13. Is there anything I can do to catch up? And then again, going back and kind of talking with other groups, usually other groups know if a group is slow. Sometimes you're out there and they'll, point at the group ahead of them or a couple groups ahead of them. So it's just making sure that when you deliver that information, it's done properly and in a way that the members or the guests feel encouraged to pick up pace of play.
That was nicely done. And again, it shows in how well versed you are in the delivery of this, that you wouldn't even throw a bad ranger under the bus here, right? So what you're basically describing is at the top end of the experience ladder, and that is positive ranger etiquette, right? So how can we assist players in a friendly, constructive way that they can actually compute and accept, rather than corrective play actions, which very often sounds like this: hey guys, you're slow, get on with it, right? And I don't think those are words that nobody has said at Baltusrol in years.
I hope not, from our standpoint.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't go down well. It doesn't go down well with players. And that's exactly what the research says, right? So, and this is the number one easy takeaway that I would all of you on this call encourage to consider: reposition the marshal role overall, right? The ranger role, because it's not well liked by golfers. It's all in the red zone. And think of it as an assistance role, because that already changes a tune, right? We're here to assist you, we're here to help you. Hey, the easiest way, and that's what Jamie's described, if we can tell players, hey, you're a bit out of position, please can you help me get back in position? That is very easy to compute. Half a hole out of position, I can compute that as a player. But if I'm being told I'm slow, that's when I start to fight. And I said, no, it's not us, it's the guys in front of us. And how dare you, right? Ironically, other people's speed, if other people are slow or I'm perceiving them as slow, that's equally as frustrating to players, right? So that's a conundrum. Don't come to me and tell me I'm slow, but if other people are slow, I will tell you all about it and I have opinions. So difficult to manage and organize. But again, this is where we can get it right if we have the right information. And that's what we want to jump into and talk about. What are the things that we need to get right on a golf course? And then we're going to talk about the technology. But just to conclude quickly, because it's the whole package, right? If you want to get the things right for your golfers, they need to be made to feel welcome. They need to have a good flow out on the golf course, and then they ideally need to meet on-course staff. On-course staff look after them in their 4 hours that they're out there, right? And that's when one thing shoots up, and that is the Net Promoter Score. And the Net Promoter Score is that good old measure, 0 out of 10, how likely are you to recommend this service, whatever it might be, airline, in this case, golf course, to your friends and peers, and will you come back? That shoots up if you get this right. If we don't, it tanks, it breaks, and people don't want to come back, right? Are you seeing, obviously, the efforts that you're putting in, that this has a positive impact also on your restaurant business and on your pro shop? Like all this effort that you're designing, is that where it ends up for you in terms of the positive sentiment that you're looking to create?
So a lot of it, I mean, there's a really strong correlation here at Baltusrol between rounds of golf played and pro shop sales, also food and beverage sales. A place like Baltusrol, it's a golf club, so people that are coming on property are either coming to eat or coming to play golf. There's not all the other amenities. So if people like you said, most of our members are very time sensitive. So if they can get in an acceptable time, they have more time to stop and have lunch, more time to stop in the pro shop. So there is a strong correlation between pace of play, getting people around. Because if it's a 5 hour round versus a 4 hour round, that's 1 hour that they lost, and they may have to go to the airport, may have to go back into the city, run back, spend time with the family and kids. So making sure that that pace goes in right around 4 hours is very important to our members and guests.
Yeah, it seems like the restaurant visit, which is a clear reward after a round. Well, if it goes an hour over, I don't have time, right? I have to leave, right? Or I might be unhappy with my experience, I have to leave. But there's a clear correlation in this research, and that came from Players First. And they've actually just teamed up with the National Golf Foundation to do really broad-based research in the space, where they do millions of post-round surveys. And they're finding, again, based on data, these are the things that matter most to golfers. And yeah, no surprises that you are seeing these correlations also at Baltusrol. Yeah, so here's just in black and white, orange and white rather. Bad flow, net promoter score dies a painful death. People will say bad things. If it's medium to good flow, that's when you're winning. But if it's great flow of play, that's when everything else that you're doing shines and looks amazing, right? So it's one thing that really has a very polar impact on the golfer experience. So let's focus on what we can do to optimize and get it right and ace it. What gets measured gets managed. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So that was Peter Drucker who said that. And I know that you measure a lot of things at Baltusrol. What happens out on a golf course is a core of your business. Obviously, you want to do that. Before we jump into what things look like for you at your 36 holes, yeah, maybe just a step back on the technology options we have out and how we help golf courses achieve success here and improvement. And one is, and that's in play at Baltusrol, is what we call a classic tracker, which is a little IoT tracker the size of a matchbox that we clip onto a golf bag or send out with a caddy. But we also have a hidden away tracker in a golf cart, or we have an 8-inch or 10-inch a GPS screen. Those are all options that we developed over time as the market said, well, we want this, we need that. What these units do is they send data to our cloud server where algorithms and machine learning does all the heavy lifting and then presents the information on a live map. So you can think of that as a really accurate Google Maps or Waze of what happens out on your golf course. And then we also have the back-end information on, what's the hole look like? What's the breakdown of times of day? What's optimal in terms of planning around goal times, intervals? How can we get more capacity? So all of those things we're trying to understand as best as possible. But let me jump back to, well, here's a unit. Let me jump back to Jamie. And here's the lower course at Baltusrol. So question for you. Who have you got dialed into this, and how do you manage things in your day-to-day with the use of this information?
So yeah, I kind of started at the beginning of last year, January, February, when we were sitting down at a golf committee meeting, knowing that we had a 36-hole membership on an 18-hole golf course. So we realized that pace of play was going to be extremely important. Normal year with 2 golf courses, we'll do about 35,000 rounds. This year on 1 golf course, we did about 26,000 from April till the end of October. So we realized getting people around in a timely manner was going to be important. So kind of sat down with the team and said, what do we as a whole team need to do to get everybody on board? It started with making sure that when we're at the play deck and starting the greeter or starter is making sure that each group gets a tag. And then once obviously the groups get out on the golf course, it comes down to us as a professional staff to make sure that we can manage pace of play. So I kind of, going back into the beginning of last year, set up an account for all of our professional staff. At the beginning of the year, we did a meeting with our outside operations, letting everybody know how important it was to make sure that a tag got out with each group. And once it's out there and everybody had an account, during our busier days throughout the season, we'd block off an hour for, each hour. A different staff member would be responsible for pace of play during that hour. So there's some hours where pace is great and you don't have to go out on the golf course. And there's, some days where every hour there's someone out there making sure that it's managed. But it took complete team buy-in to make sure that everyone was on board to do it, because we realized that, if you have a slow group that's out at 9 o'clock on a Friday, the whole day is going to be slow. And going to back to the slides that you were showing earlier, that can take away from the experience for the whole day. So it was a team buy-in, and I think looking back now, I think it was pretty successful and a super successful tool for us to use and be more efficient with our time.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I do think also the way, obviously, you had to manage a lot of traffic onto a single course, and that's why I said we have seen this move before, because you did major innovations on your other course, and again, smart strategies put in place. One of the things that's certainly helpful also is to really understand your player base. Talk to us a little bit about the integration and how that works for you guys.
Yeah, so we use Forties. Forties is great, as far as making sure that everything goes over into Tag Marshal, so it's automated. So we had a little bit different structure this year, where Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it was every other tee time with member walk-up play every other time. And then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was full tee times. If you wanted to play, you needed to make a tee time. So everything pulls over. So as long as our starter is getting a tag with each group, we did the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'd have our staff members go in and assign the tags. And then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, when we knew who was coming, we used the auto assign feature, which was great and saved staff a lot of time there.
Yeah, that's great to hear for us, because obviously that's where we see technology's role, right? Be more efficient, make sure that you can be accurate without all the manual effort, and then automate and bring efficiencies with the various systems talking to each other. So for us, that's very important, and we have about 20 integrations now at this point, including virtually all of the tee sheets that matter, and obviously also Golf Weather and Golf Genius, for instance. One of the things and just to wrap up this live section, obviously you can now imagine everything moves here live in real time, including your drinks cards if you have that tracked, or your superintendent fleet if that's something that you want to track. We can really track everything that moves, and then we want to make sense of where the challenges in real time. Because if you were to try and manage things in the traditional way, you need a lot of effort, not of eyes, and then very often, how are you going to interact with the players without the right information, right? Where they don't want to hear from you if you tell them they're out of position. So pulling in the player names very helpful, because it helps personalize the service. But later down the road, we're going to talk about how that helps building player profiles too, right? Which is a sort of broader management opportunity. So where the sidebar here really shows you how did this group go. Number 33, we're clicking on them. We see hole 1, 2, 3, 4. Hole number 5, the last 3 holes, they started to fall out of position. They're currently just 6 minutes out, and that's a good time to jump on the problem right before they start impacting more groups. So they've got 2 groups behind them that are already starting to get impacted, and that is really difficult to ascertain just by line of sight and with radios, right? So having that real time makes things so much easier. And just to commend you and the team. So year over year, obviously with so much more play coming through, you can see that 250 groups versus 720 groups of play in the month of August, which is always busy. Your system engagement has been 5 times higher in the way that in which you work with the system, and you have brought the round times down by 12 minutes, even though there's more than twice the amount of play out. So really well done. And Jamie, and I think you need to, and I hope that your team acknowledges, I could pat yourself on the back here for a second. This is not an easy thing to do. And this is really comes down to you as a management team making a commitment to that. You knew this was going to be a challenging year, and making a commitment to really dialing into the system and making sure that you prepared as best as you possibly can be. What are you seeing ahead now next season? You've got both courses open again. yeah, how are things going to change for you from a management point of view? Are you going to keep things more or less the way they are?
So, obviously when you have the two golf courses, you can spread out play a little bit more. So, there's still numbers wise, there's still more rounds of golf, but tee time intervals tend to spread out a little bit more. So we'll obviously continue to use the system. Like I said, it allows us to be a lot more efficient with our time. Rather than spending all day driving around looking for problems, it's easy to hop out of a meeting or finish up a lesson. I can go to my phone, pull it up. It takes a minute. I don't have to hop in a cart, drive 36 holes to see if there's an issue. So from just an efficiency standpoint, again, we're going to continue to use it. It just allows us to do things that golf pros like to do. If I look at my phone and I see that the maps are all green, it's great. If I have an hour, I can use that to practice or, make phone calls, catch up on stuff in the shop, engage with members on the putting green. So again, for us golf pros who I know are always limited on time, it makes it a lot more efficient for all of our staff.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And you'll see on the right that Baltusrol is a diamond partner. So again, we're data nerds and we try and benchmark how our 600 partner courses are faring in terms of their results that they're achieving. And there's only 30 that get that top pedigree. So well done to you and the team. You're in really good company. Among that is Pinehurst number 2, Dunes, and what's amazing for me, obviously, a few courses down the road that nobody's ever heard of, like $50 green fee golf courses that are getting amazing results and really serving their golfers, as well as a major, really highly resourced major host. So that's awesome, but it doesn't happen by chance. It happens by design, and we want to look a little bit more into the efficiencies and the labor savings side of things, which again, that's a key critical component of running your golf operation. It's not easy to get new good staff on board. Also, obviously, your cost base keeps rising. So the people that you do have, what we hearing a lot of partners say, we need to give them the tools so that they can be successful, right? And obviously, again, that's where technology is helpful. So and you mentioned this earlier, from an efficiencies point of view, you mentioned it briefly, the automated T-sheet assignment. Just talk a minute to how that works and how that information in terms of your workflow then makes sense live out on the golf course. But then also, we're going to talk about player profiles. How is it helpful to you and the team to have these player names assigned?
Yeah. So when like I said, our Friday, Saturday, Sunday, everything, it's tee time. So everything's assigned for the day. So, when I get the email is at 11 o'clock at night, I know who's coming the next day. And, once they get there, go down to the locker room, get ready, tee off. It's like a barrier just past the first tee. And once they, as long as the starter gives them a tag, as soon as they cross that barrier, it pulls the tee time with the closest time and links those up. So rather than having to go in and assign each tag, tag 33s with the 9 o'clock group, tag 34s with the 9:10 group, it's at 9:01, when that group leaves the tee, it automatically puts tag 33 with that group. So again, it saves again on having someone sitting at the computer plugging in these times. So for a facility that is full tee times, this feature it's awesome.
Yeah, and thanks for the explainer again. But you can imagine what that does at a busy daily fee golf course too, which obviously you're very different, but you're short staffed, things are busy. The moment that these two golf carts go through the trigger zone, it automatically assigns, you don't need to touch anything. So that's where automation is really helpful. One of the things that I know that you've got dialed into in terms of your team really has a handle on things is the text alerts. Why don't you tell us a little bit how that works for you?
So like I said a little bit earlier, at the beginning of the year, I went in and I made every assistant their own login. And I went in, there's a feature, the text alerts feature, where you can go in, add everybody's phone number, and then set the number, when a group falls a specific number behind pace of play, you get a text. So I set that number this year at 7 minutes. So, at any point, if a group on the golf course falls behind 7 minutes or more, all of us receive a text. So there's no reason why, if a group's behind, none of us should know, because all of us are going to get the same text. So it's kind of a way, no one goes anywhere without their phones anymore, and no one really spends more than an hour not checking their phone. So it's just a way that at any point, I don't actually have to log in. I can, look down or feel a buzz, look at my watch and say, hey, you know what? There's a group out there that's slow. We have a staff group chat. Hey, saw this tag's behind. Who's free to go do a lap? So again, it's a way that we can track it without having to continually log in, and for us, that's been awesome.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So we have a feature called problem groups that gives you even further dials as to what you want to see, when you want to be notified, and the system then tracks everything that moves all the time, and you get the information that's relevant to you. And the system is the eyes and ears, if you will, the eye in the sky. So that's exactly what it's designed for. Maybe at the halfway mark of our session, we have a few of our customer success team online. So those are, many of them are PGA pros that work within our team that help, managers like Jamie get the most out of our program. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them into the Q&A or the chat. They'd be very happy to answer. While we keep going through the content. So like we said, you have obviously the lower course and the upper course and next year you'll have both of them available again. One question that's maybe interesting to other multi-course or 36 or 27 hole operators, how does this work across the two golf courses? How do you have this deployed across the two? Is it completely separate? Is there crossover? Maybe just asking a simple question that I might expect somebody asking here.
Yeah. So, I mean, as long as once we give out the tag, as soon as they go across that zone, or like you said, that trigger zone, it automatically starts. So, we don't have a certain allocation of tags that are upper versus lower. It automatically, once they walk, into the fairway on one, whether it's upper or lower, the tag automatically populates on the screen. So, I know in previous years, we'd have the upper and lower separate. I know now, with the new feature, everything's on one. So honestly, I have it as almost like an app on my phone, so I can just click it. You can rotate between the upper or the lower. It's super easy. Everything's in one spot. Again, it's super simple.
It's so complicated to program this, I can't even tell you. No, I'm not kidding. But we've literally seen all sorts of special combinations, double T starts, obviously, shotguns, right? So from a system point of view, that over the years we have managed to program this all in. And so for me, it's the best news ever if you're saying this just works and it's simple, right? Because our tech team coding this, they're like, every time a customer says this is simple, we have written another 1,000 lines of code to make it like that. So that's great news. So one of the things that's also obviously important, more and more so now than ever, is how do we have data that helps the superintendent? And also in your case in particular, you have renovated to world-class standards in both of your golf courses. So I know that this is something that we worked on with Ryan at the time, where he was like, well, we've got all this data. How can we use it to make better decisions around our renovation? So what this does for the supers, but also potentially for the course designers, is it shows you where do players go, where don't they go, right? And also where do potentially players or caddies cut across certain areas that we may not have foreseen in the original course design. So what we're finding a lot, and your committee that was in charge of the renovations, that was before your time, so I'm filling in the gaps here. They said like this information has really helped us to save so much time and effort and mistakes that we would have made had we just designed away, right? So now we had real data to look at, and it's really informed the design process. So this is obviously great for us to hear. And we've also seen this work really well at Valhalla. They also did a big renovation ahead of the PGA Champs. There seems to be a trend here. And well, if you're going to renovate, right, you want to get it right, and you want to make sure that you create the right challenge. You're true to the spirit of the course design, but also you want to do things smartly from a we're not creating pace and flow of play problems here at the get-go. Where can we do things better, right? So that was great to hear, and also for them to take the time to let us know about that. The next little feature that I'd like to jump into is called the track map. So this is a history of every single round that got played at the course, with a whole lot of information. But Jamie, over to you. How is this, and is it ever useful to you? When do you use it? What's the benefit?
Yeah, I would say we use it every day. As you can see in this example here, from middle of October, this would be an example of if I were to pull up the app and see, hey, you know what, this group's behind. I can see, Mason went out, talked with them at 137. We can see where they slowed down. They were on pace halfway through 2, they slowed down, but also the pace per hole on the bottom left, you can see that they've steadily been behind. So it's something like this would be an example where I would say it's not like this group just had one bad hole. They've been slow pretty consistently. So something like this is where I would say, hey, I'd either reach out to Mason, just ask him like what he said. Obviously he gave him a friendly encouragement, just ask him, did they know that they were behind? He said, they were aware, maybe they weren't aware. But this would probably be an example where I would just go out and talk to him and say, hey, you know what, if you guys save 30 seconds a hole the rest of the way, that's going to get them closer to being on pace. So a lot of times when we talk with the group, it's they think that they just have to rush the next hole. If they rush the next hole, that just moves the pace of play gap, right? The group behind them already knows that they're slow, and if all of a sudden a group plays a one hole and call it 5 minutes under pace, well, now the next group, if they continue that pace, they're still slow. So again, it allows us to track, see where they're slow, and then again, like I said, having the feature and everyone having their own account rather than just one big account. I can see that Mason talked with them. I can reach out to Mason specifically, and then as a team, we can reach out to that person and see what they said. But again, like I said, we use this every day, and it's a really good tool to be able to see where they were behind.
Yeah, brilliant. I know another good use case, obviously, if you have a course that does a lot of kart rounds and there's geofences, you can then see who was it that broke the geofence, and sometimes there's damaged carts, and you can trace that back and exactly who, where, what. Very easy to then recover and have these conversations. But from pace management point of view, I think you made a very important point, is that if things slow down, you get this sort of concertina effect, right? Where things starting to back into this group. If they now all of a sudden speed up, then you have not actually solved the problem. So I do think, because then you need to make sure everyone else stays with them, and you don't just open up a big gap. So I think that's a lot of experience that comes through here in managing things well. Again, maybe just one of the simple takeaways is it's always good to get on top of things early, right? Be preemptive, preventative, rather than on the back nine. You cannot get the time back once somebody's 20 minutes out, right? Here's a question that came through in the chat for Jamie. I'm curious, with Tag Marshal, do you not have regular roaming rangers or course marshals? Do you only send staff out to check on groups when there is a pace of play issue?
Yeah, so it's only the professional staff. We don't have marshals or rangers. Again, I guess we are the marshals and rangers, but we're not always out there. Generally, every one of our professional staff members will do a lap, even if pace isn't slow. Just like the study showed earlier, it's nice. People enjoy seeing the staff out there and interacting with them. Also, it lets the members and the guests know that we are monitoring pace of play, even if there isn't an issue. But no, we don't have specific marshals in specific spots. It's us that, and we rotate the responsibility, and not everyone, it's not every hour that someone's out there, but during our busy days, we had a couple days in June where we did over 200 rounds on one golf course. For those days, we're going to have one person out there pretty much all day. But
yeah, I'm hearing a bit of a labor allocation angle to that question, right? And a lot of courses that we work with, they're saying, well, we used to have lots of people out there to try and make sense of the problem and keep things moving. Well, now we have a system that does it for us, so we can be much more strategic and efficient in going where we need to. And in line with the problem groups features / the text messages, if your effective time spent out on the golf course is then 2 hours, then why do you need to staff it for 10 hours, right? So it's one of the efficiencies gains that we're seeing a lot of clubs getting really good around. But data, and I've warned you, data is always exciting for us, and we feel that the more, and you can never know enough about your golf course, you can never know enough about your business, right? So we're obviously trying to make this data accessible and also show you things that matter. So here's what we call our analytics hub, and this one shows a day in October. So any single day you can look at like this, and you can see that 100% of the groups were assigned. So it's always great to see. It may have been auto-assigned, but then we know what's a two-sim, what's a three-sim, four-sim, and so on. You can see that immediately. Here's 2 players. Then how did they go from an average round time point of view, and how did that stack up during the day? Were there on-course interactions? Were they successful? You can see only one group fell out of position, and then they started impacting other groups behind them. So this is your hour by hour breakdown, if you will. And then we also have the weather, because the weather, like if things are absolutely horrible with the gale force headwind, then, well, that would have an impact on your data. And we can then also look at over a period, say a week, a month, what have you. And we want to see the hole by hole run time, and even the breakdown on time on tee box, time in fairway, time on green, because very often tee box wait time is where players are starting to hurt. And ultimately, we get that moment of truth, the pace style, what percentage of our day or of our period came through faster than pace, on pace, or was slow and delayed. So that's the quick going around the clock here. 81% on pace, average round times 344. Good at the office for you guys. Jamie, a question to you. How do you use this, or maybe a period view, to report on? Who gets to see this? How do you work with this?
So, if we start seeing that there's a trend, with one particular member or guest, I can go back, I go into this page, click, I can pull up the notes. Again, if it's a repeat offender, it's nice to be able to kind of print this off, give that to the golf committee and say, hey, that, this is the information, this is how it's impacting groups. Like this day in particular, if it's the same person, I could say, hey, you know what, they affected this many groups behind them. And then ultimately give that to our golf committee for them to make a decision if this is something, or if it's, if it's one day, okay. But if it's, a repeat offender, maybe it's the golf committee has to sit down and have a conversation with that person and make sure that they are aware that their pace is slow. So again, we use this quite a bit, but it's nice just to see, again, that one group slows it down and how many people that affect. Again, if that purple is earlier in the day, you're going to see a lot more groups be affected. But
Sure.
It's a great tool.
I think another item that's really important, even so, especially also over time, is a hole by hole run time, right? So which of our holes are actually playing considerably slower than we thought, and then we can dial the system into that. And very often there's low cost decisions that can be made, that might be pin placement, and we've had clubs make holes a little bit harder, like make the rough a little bit a little bit tougher to play, for instance, to buy time for the hole behind, right? Sometimes you need to do things that are a bit out of sync with what you think you need to do, but you can only do it if you have data, and then you need to run through the number of rounds and say, well, does it have the impact? And what we like to think of this as is an incremental improvement machine, because all the changes that we're making are incremental, right? But if we're saving, and you mentioned it earlier, if a group's out of position and they're improving by half a minute a hole, that makes a big impact. What if we improved every single hole that we have by a minute or two over 18? That's huge impact, right? So we can only do that if we measure it. One of the things that we mentioned was obviously the member profiles opportunity around integrating with the T-sheet, where over time we're realizing this particular member, we've blacked out the name, even though this person would probably be proud. They have played virtually every single round on pace that they played. Whereas here's a member who has played a lot of rounds where they were either delaying others or they were slow. And this obviously, out of 72 total, that makes for important reading when it comes to, well, should this person start of our day? Should they really get the 8 a.m. tea time, right? And also, how do we pair them? Where do we put them so that, or do we need to have an educational conversation before things escalate? I think you spoke to that. The hole run times, I think you're pretty well dialed into. Is that something that you've learned around digging into this data, and something that's maybe going to be important for you going into the new season?
I mentioned earlier, hole 13 is a little bit slower, as you can see in the data here. I know hole 13 on the lower is always slower, especially like in that October range, because there's trees on the right and there's a halfway house halfway through the hole on the left. So I think there's quite a few groups that stop at the middle of the hole at the halfway house, which I think slows down pace overall. But again, we kind of, when Peter was here this fall and we kind of went through the year review, we kind of looked at that, realized that there's an opportunity to change a couple holes. You can see hole number 6 plays a little bit faster. What is it? Hole number 10 plays a little bit faster. So when you look at the red there, one plays 8 seconds over pace, the other plays 21 seconds over pace. Where, again, an example like hole number 10, 2 minutes under pace, we could adjust, and we probably will adjust those numbers going into next year. But it's great to have the data to say, okay, this hole's playing quicker, this hole's playing longer. But again, 28 seconds over pace on those holes for that, that data. That September, the month of September, is pretty good.
Yeah, again, if you're talking about 30 seconds here, what's the big deal? But if you times that by 18, right, then it becomes impactful. But again, you're pretty well dialed in, and that means that you have looked at this data before. Very often we get data to set up the system with based on anecdotal information, and sometimes it's very wrong, right? Sometimes 5 minutes off, and then we're obviously trying to dial into that and look at how can we improve. But looking at the overall season data, and this is your June through October, virtually all the busy season wrapped into that, where your goal time is 4:12, and you're bringing your entire busy, everything happens on one golf course. You bring your entire season in at 3:57. Again, well done to you. That's a job well done. I think your players will be very happy, your members will be very happy with that. One of the things that is important, and you saw that earlier on the Analytics Hub, we're trying to see what's the average round time in these day segments, right? So we know obviously first round out, people will fly, but what happens before 8 a.m.? So at Baltusrol, you can see that, people actually play in 3 hours 13. Well, what can we do with this information? I know that you mentioned Peter is obviously your customer support, so customer success manager that works with you. Yeah, tell us a little bit how you're thinking about that, and having access to this information, and how that might be helpful to you guys going forward.
Yeah, so like Peter and I, when we talked, if all of a sudden, you can see that we're doing a large number of rounds between that 7 and 8 o'clock range, but if pace of play is 3 hours and 13 minutes, we can look at something as far as adjusting tee time intervals. So I know, even if we're 10 minutes, if we're getting groups out quicker than that and they're playing in an acceptable pace of play, we talked about potentially moving the tee time intervals down, so then you can get more people on the golf course. So that was something we talked about in that 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock range.
Yeah, and we mentioned it earlier, right? So the tee time availability is a huge factor, uh, especially on your key days, right? If you can create a little bit more capacity, you make more players happy. That's good for your members. That's good for your golfers. But again, at a daily fee setup, that is straight bottom line, right? And we see a lot of clubs that are dialing into this quite nicely, where they're reducing the goal time for those early sections of the day, and sometimes by 20-30 minutes, down from their normal average, and then they start marketing that. So, hey, if you want to play our 18 holes in 3 hours 30, we can make that happen. Just book a pre-8 a.m. tee time and play along, and we will manage you through that. And a lot of players saying, great, like I'm happy to pay more for that, and dialing that in with dynamic pricing. And then because you're moving people quicker, they're getting out of the shot zone quicker, you can actually reduce and tighten your intervals and very quickly free up capacity. And that's a huge gain, especially if you can manage the pace and the quality of play so well around it, right? So you're not actually risking your day, but you manage everything really well, and then you're adding more capacity smartly. So that's great to see for us. And I think, just again, you mentioned it earlier that it's a few groups. We don't need to have line of sight of everyone all the time, but we need to know what are the groups that are starting to fall out of position, delaying others. So in your case, things are well managed. 6.8% of your groups are delayers, and they're delaying up to 20%. And this is at a course that's holding themselves to a really high standard. And I can tell you that if this wasn't managed proactively, and you just let things be out there, you would have 25% of groups impacting 60% of the day, right? And that's when your performance goes from 3 hours 57 to 4 hours 40 quickly, right? And we've seen this movie before, and sometimes we're starting out like that, where things are quite tricky to manage, and then we're starting to dial things back into more optimal performance and quality. But you really have it down, and it's great to see. And also, more than half, this is almost 70% of your play comes through quicker or on pace, against quite a tight average round time. So this would be, I'm hoping that this is a joy for you to report to your committees and to your members, and especially very simple measure. Well, our average time this year was 3 hours 57. I hope that you get a ticket to the PGA show and to St. Andrews for your efforts.
It was a team. It wasn't just me. I can assure you that.
No, for sure. No, and important to acknowledge, and also the hallmark of a good manager. It's always a group effort. But importantly, who are you serving? It's your members, right? And it's your golfers. So a question, how have they responded to the tech? And maybe there's two sides to this question, because obviously Tagmarsh has been in play at Baltusrol now for 4 or 5 years, so it's not new. So very often, and this is before your time, so I'm going to answer it for you. I hope you don't mind. But very often, if the tech first enters the club, sometimes managers are like, well, what if the players are saying we don't want to be tracked? We don't like that there's this big brother watching. But very often the managers are saying, well, do you like quick golf, right? Do you like to make sure that people in front of you stay on pace and you don't get held up? Well, if you like that, then we have to put a track on everyone so that we can make sure that that's the results that we're achieving. In your case, obviously, a few seasons in, it's a bit different. But what's it like to run the show with the system and having so much golf happen? And what's the member response like? I hope they don't take it for granted, because it really comes down to the effort that you're putting into it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the response overall is positive. It's not necessarily. I mean, it's important to know. It's sometimes when you're out there doing pace. There's a group that wants to play in 3 hours and 45 minutes at 1 o'clock on a Friday. Well, that's not realistic. So they may say, hey, the group ahead of us is slow. Well, if I can pull up the data and say, what, actually the group's playing in 4 hours, it kind of what you said about other speed. Well, then they can realize, hey, what, it is being monitored. Maybe I just need to, slow down my pace, because I'm going a little bit faster than expected. But so it's really good to have that tool to be able to pull up and say, hey, you know what, they're on pace. Or, you know, the same goes if there's a group behind pace. A lot of times if a group is slow and one of our staff members talked to them and they pick up pace, I can see that they picked up pace. I'll go find them on the golf course and stop and say, hey, I just want to thank you guys for picking up your pace of play today. It means a lot, and the people behind you are going to be a lot happier. It's usually that's met with a warm response. It's one thing when you're telling someone to pick it up, kind of giving them a negative response, but it's also nice to go back out there if they have picked it up and thank them. And I've had a couple members stop me after, say, hey, you know what, you didn't have to stop out. We knew we were slow, but, you know, thanks for stopping out and telling us we picked up pace. A funny story about members knowing the technology. We had a group of 4 members out this year that they had, if you went into their player profile, they were notoriously slow. One of their members knows that we track this. So they're on 12 green. Before 2 o'clock here, you have to take a caddy. I drive out there and there's a player carrying his own bag on hole number 13. And so before talking with them, I went and talked with the member and I said, hey, he said, before you say anything, he said, those guys are slow. They're playing way too slow. I do not want to get a letter. He said, so I told them that I'm going to take my own bag. So I finish in 4 hours because I'm not going to be associated with slow play. So they're obviously aware of it. You know, by the time that they got to 14, they had picked up their pace and he was back with the group. But it's funny to know that the members take pride in playing an acceptable pace. And in this one instance, you know, that the member said, hey, you know what, I'm not going to be associated with slow play. And again, that just goes to show that the members know that we are tracking it. And again, it just leads to everybody's overall enjoyment when they're here at Baltusrol. So.
Yeah, and again, well done. I think this would be, I'm actually waiting for the day where this happens on tour. Just saying. Yeah, thanks for sharing that story. It's really fun, and obviously the players know well that you're tracking. And again, what some of our partner clubs do is they put a big screen TV in the clubhouse and they put a live map on there, and then everyone knows what's what. And then yeah, it also shows what's the goal time, what's the current run rate out on the golf course, right? So it's really like a control room, like at an airport, and that really helps with setting expectations. And also people know from the get-go, especially in data view golf, okay, these guys have high competency about what they're doing and they're tracking what happens on the golf course, and they're taking my time seriously, right? But also that means I'm going to behave, right? Thank you for the great insights. I know that we've got a few questions that have been posted in the Q&A. I just hope that we can just quickly get to those in another minute or two. One question was, do you have a lottery for weekend tee times or control groups on busy days? Do you control groups on busy days in any way?
So we don't have a lottery system. So we do walk up 2 balls first thing in the morning. So we send out in the summer from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Every 5 minutes, we send 2 sims out. So they're usually, like, as you saw, they're the groups that cruise around in about 3 hours to get those. Usually it's, you know, people that have younger kids that want to get a round in on the weekend. And then after that, this year with one golf course, depending on your membership classification, was allowed. You could book full golf, could book 10 days in advance. And then we restricted guest tee times on the weekend. So members had first preference to the tee times over the weekend. So there was 1 guest time every hour. And then the times that didn't get filled, 2 days in advance at 9 o'clock. So for Saturday, Thursday at 9 o'clock, all the tee times that weren't filled after 12 opened up and members could book with guests. So again, with one golf course this year, we wanted to make sure that our members got first priority. So in a normal year with 2 golf courses, we'll do about 50% guest play, 50% member play. Our golf committee wanted our members to have first look at the golf course this year and prioritize that. So this year we did about 67% member rounds versus 50 in a normal year. But there's no lottery, but I have worked at a course that does a lottery system, and it's lotteries are tricky.
Yeah. So to this point, we are actually in conversation with some of the private club tee sheets that do allow lotteries. to use the player profile on pace as a variable when it comes to some of the tee times are not available for this player, right? So it's a lottery, yes, but it's restricted. So that your faster players historically would have those options for the pace setting and the earlier tee times, and your slower players historically would have to be placed elsewhere by the lottery, right? So the system did it. So that is something that we're in discussion with. Jamie, thank you so much for your time. I am happy to report that I've kept us on pace here. There was a power hour.
Perfect.
If I've never seen one. Thank you. Yeah, just a few of the people here. Joey Waters, our GM, obviously up in the area lot. He's down in Atlanta. David Hamilton, our VP of Business Development. He's out of Augusta. Also has spent a lot of time in the New York Met and New Jersey area. And Michael Glanville Smith, one of our partnership executives. The other one is Jake Morales, who some of you might know. He's recently joined our team. Also, got a PGA badge. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'd love to see if we can help. And come and find us at the PGA show down in Orlando if you do go down. Jamie, it's been amazing. I hope that you will come down again. I know that you and Peter sat down at the PGA show and you made big plans and you have achieved everything that you set out.
We're gonna try to get even better though. So I
appreciate
everything you guys do. This, like I said, the system's great. It's been a huge tool for us. So thank you so much, and thank you for your time today.
Amazing. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again. And on the PDR questions, both Metropolitan section and the New York Met section members, we have got you logged and tracked. And thanks for sticking around for the whole hour. We'll make sure that your PDR credits reach your accounts. You must have a good rest of the year, and then hopefully full of energy and big plans for the new season. Jamie, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
And the team. Send my regards to Ryan. I don't know if he's on this call or not. I don't know if you invited him.
He's not. He's working, but he's
busy man. Okay.
I told him, I told him I'd be here, so I'll say hi to him. Right.
Amazing. Thank you, John, as well. Thanks for doing the intro, and we will see you down in Orlando, no doubt. Okay. Thanks, everyone, and goodbye.
I'll see you then. Thank you.